Today it's samurai time. Well, it's also pizza time, but that has nothing to do with the subject of this video. So as much as my stomach is crying, I'll leave the pizza alone for a little bit. The reason why it's samurai time today is because I just received in the mail Assassin's Creed Shadows, new video game from Ubisoft. I've played just about every single Assassin's Creed so far, so I'm looking forward to diving into this one. This one, though, is packed with controversy. And the reason being is that the lead character in this is Yasuke, an African man, as the lead in a story set in Japan in the 1500s. This apparently has been enough to upset a ton of people, saying that Ubisoft has gone woke and there's all this which honestly, I think, trying to put it politely, but really I think this is just bullshit. It's just people wanting to be outraged about something at all costs and finding excuses. Because nobody made a big deal when Tom Cruise was the lead star in The Last Samurai. Same kind of idea, right? It's a Japanese setting, but the lead star is a white guy. Nobody made a big deal when there was a white guy as the lead star in Shogun. If you want to move outside of a Japanese context, nobody made a big deal when it was Kevin Costner starring with Dances with Wolves as the lead in a Lakota story. So, I mean, this idea of taking somebody from outside the culture and making them being the lead for the audience to get what it's like to experience the culture as an outsider is nothing new. It's one of the oldest tropes in the book, whether in movies or anything else. So I find all the outrage fairly ridiculous. But now let's take a quick look at Yasuke himself. Like, where does this character come from? Was it did Ubisoft make it up? Was it a real historical character? Let's dive in. So let me start with the conclusion. Yasuke was indeed a real historical person, but all the solid evidence we have about him could be summed up in barely a minute. What we know about him is that he came to Japan in the late 1570s at the service of some of the Jesuit missionaries, specifically at the service of a certain Alessandro Valignano, who was an Italian Jesuit, was kind of the head, probably the most important Jesuit in Asia at this time. He was the overseer of the Jesuit operations from East Africa to Japan. And the Jesuits were there to try to convert as many people as possible in Japan, making all the necessary contacts in Japanese society to be able to start wielding some political muscle there. What does Yasuke have anything to do with it? Yasuke was Valignano's bodyguard. It's unclear whether he was a slave or not. I mean, the Jesuits were against slavery, so in theory, probably he wasn't. Now, they made plenty of exceptions, so who knows, hard to tell. So all of these are educated guesses. We don't know for sure. We just know that he came with Valignano as his servant. Again, whether slave or hired bodyguard remains to be seen. When they arrived, needless to say, Yasuke attracted lots of attention because there weren't exactly a whole lot of tall, big African guys roaming around Japan at this time. So word about Yasuke reached the dominant political figure in Japan at this time, which was the warlord Oda Nobunaga. The Jesuits badly wanted to set up a meeting with Nobunaga because they wanted to discuss the process of missionizing, setting up some alliance there. But apparently Nobunaga was more interested in Yasuke than he was in the Jesuits themselves. He had heard all the rumors about this big, huge, dark-skinned guy, and he wanted to see for himself. And so the Jesuits figure, okay, well, that's an in somehow to meeting with Nobunaga. So the meeting took place in 1581. By then, Yasuke had been in Japan for about 2 years. The primary sources tell us that he was able to speak with Nobunaga in Japanese. And they also tell us that Nobunaga enjoyed talking with Yasuke quite a bit. Supposedly, Nobunaga was impressed enough with the conversation with Yasuke that he gave him some servants and made him a retainer. He even gifted him a ceremonial sword. Now, Nobunaga was known for being a weird, unconventional guy who was fascinated with foreign things. So that would probably make him more receptive to the notion of a non-Japanese samurai. We don't really know if Yasuke was a samurai in any kind of formal sense, as if he became a warrior in the service of Nobunaga, or he was simply some, by Japanese standard, a weird looking guy that would attract attention and became sort of Nobunaga's pet in a way. But we do know that Nobunaga's sons treated Yasuke very well and gave him a bunch of money as gifts. And we do know that Valignano agreed to let Yasuke enter in the service of Nobunaga. What this service meant, nobody knows. We do know that he played the role of weapons bearer for Nobunaga in at least some cases, but that's more or less as far as we know. That's more or less all we know about it. Other than this is the solid evidence. Then there's a bunch of evidence that's dubious at best about Yasuke may have been present when Nobunaga was killed, and he may have even been the guy who took Nobunaga's head to be carried away so that it wouldn't fall into the hands of enemies. But this is all speculation based on not a whole lot of solid evidence, so maybe real, maybe not. The only thing that we know beyond any doubts is that an East African man arrived in Japan at the service of the Jesuits, had a meeting with Oda Nobunaga, and became one of his men. He was given a house and a sword by Nobunaga, and that's about all we know. So this is perfect for screenwriters. It's perfect for the people who wrote the video game, because there's enough to know that the man was a real person, a real historical character, but there's also so much that we don't know that it allows the screenwriters to come up with pretty much anything and have the freedom to make up any backstory that they want. Not that the guys writing Assassin's Creed need that kind of license, since, in the course of the Assassin's Creed story, we have had, in one of them, there was a fist fight between the character you play and the Pope. There's, they play fast and loose with history in very hilarious and funny ways. But definitely in the case of Yasuke, there's plenty of freedom to play with. So aside for all the ridiculous controversies, I'm just looking forward to playing this game.